Hi, everyone. Today we're talking to Kyle Coleman from Clary. Hi, Kyle.
How's it going, Maya?
It's very good. Thank you so much for being here. And I really wanted to talk to Kyle because he recently mentioned his career path and how it wasn't what you normally imagine. It wasn't that straight line going up and to the right. And I thought it would be super, insightful to hear a little bit about his story. So Kyle, would you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure thing. So I started at Clary about a year ago. And prior to Clary, I was at a company called Looker based in Santa Cruz, California for about 6 years. I started as the sixth employee back in 2013. And throughout the 6 years I was there, the company grew to about 750 or 800 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And I ended up growing the SDR team from just a team of one, myself, up to a global team of about 65 people in California and in New York and in Dublin, Ireland. So a lot of experience hiring younger people, or I should say people who are new to an industry,
Mhm.
and helping them grow and develop their careers in addition to growing and developing my own.
Yeah. Very cool. So what I was talking about before that post that you shared on LinkedIn, you wanted to talk about this misconception that careers are a ladder and the only way is up. And you mentioned it's actually a little bit more like rock climbing. So I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit more about that and maybe talk a little bit about your path and the choices you've made.
Yeah, for sure. So especially in entry level roles, which at a lot of companies, the SDR role is considered entry level, people get restless. It's a difficult job and people feel like they just want to move out for the sake of movement. And I caution against that pretty much in every circumstance, because the right way to think about career development is more through the lens of what experiences are you trying to get that you're
Yeah.
not currently getting in your current role. It's not necessarily what title am I trying to pursue. And that's the big misconception is people think that career advancement is always a straight ladder up. And that's really not the case, especially for people who are brand new to an industry or new to a company and don't totally know what they want to do. You have to be okay entertaining the possibility for lateral movement before
Yeah.
you end up scaling up, or even sometimes taking a step back, especially if you're new to an industry or something like that, to learn the industry, pay your dues, whatever you want to say, before you're actually positioned to advance from a title standpoint.
And that's something you've actually done in your career, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So my own personal journey is an exact example of this, where I, post college graduation, had a pretty respectable job. I was a financial advisor for a company called Edward Jones, and I realized it just wasn't for me. It wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And so I ended up really going from what my family at least considered a prestigious role to a series of just different experiences that were building different skill sets, from web development to podcasting to spending
Oh,
a few
wow.
months, yeah, spending a few months playing online poker, which was an interesting thing, which we'll talk about at a later date. Until I finally found that I've made my way into B2B and into sales. And that was the area where I got to flex my muscles and be able to define processes and work with people and just have that skill set really multiply in a way that made sense for me to think about a true longer career path that really was one that took a more traditional kind of promotion path.
Right. So if someone is looking at their next career move, what do you think they should optimize for? What should be the most important thing?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that a lot of modern companies are doing is they're not thinking about career paths as, again, the straight ladder up. Instead, they're thinking about career development as ways that people can reinvent themselves within a company. And
Oh, I
so,
love that.
yeah, and this is stolen directly from a report that Deloitte did recently. And reinventing yourself within this company is a really, really useful sort of framework. Something that we talk a lot about at Clary is, what is your individual superpower? What do you do better than anybody else you work with? And specifically, what do you do that can multiply your impact outside of your stated role? And if you focus on that, you focus on honing that superpower, and multiplying or magnifying your impact, developing cross-functional relationships, you'll start to get a better sense for what is intrinsically motivating for you. Not just money, not just, the extrinsic motivators that come along with promotion or advancement, but what gets you out of bed in the morning? What is really exciting to you? What are the experiences that you really want to have? So that would be my advice, is look for within yourself for what the special skill set is that you have that can extend beyond your role. And then what are the experiences that you want to have in your next role or in your career, and try and find the intersection of those two things.
Yeah, this is great advice. And to be honest, if maybe your company is not there yet, if they're not thinking about it, I do think you can create your own opportunities. So you can think of ways that you can help, or maybe mentor other people, or start an internal project. There are different ways that you can try out to see what makes you happy and what makes you feel fulfilled in your job.
That's exactly right. And that's what hopefully I've helped a lot of folks do this, is find the right, or I should say, create the cross-functional relationships and find the right side projects that they can take on, so they can prove to a hiring manager, I'm capable of doing this work. And they can prove to themselves, I like doing this work.
Yeah.
So that when the next more junior level role comes up in sales operations or demand generation or alliances or whatever it may be, there's already a relationship there, and they have a smoother advancement path for that reason. So carving out those side projects is something that individual contributors absolutely can do themselves, and should enlist their managers' help with, in order to gain visibility across the company.
Yeah, 100%. Is there something people should avoid when they're looking for their new career challenge?
Yeah, I alluded to it, I mentioned it earlier, which is movement for the sake of movement. If you are really honest with yourself and you're like, I'm just taking this role to either get out of my current role, or because I feel like I have to keep up with some artificial or arbitrary timeline that you've created for yourself, that is not the right reason. So really be honest with yourself. And there's nothing at all wrong with being proficient in your role and accomplishing everything you need to do, in 35 or 40 hours in a week, and use the extra 5 or 10 hours a week to work on something else, and then develop that extra skill set and prepare intentionally and mindfully for whatever the right next step is for you.
Yeah, no, I love that. I truly believe that you need to find that balance that just makes you happy, whether you're at work or outside of work. So last but not least, what is a piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Ooh, this is a good question. I feel like something that, it sounds obvious, but I'm gonna say it anyway, because I didn't think this way when I was a bit earlier in my career. But I used to think that a superpower was solving problems, an ability to solve problems, and if you can do that, you're in really good shape and you're useful, at the company no matter what. But I've realized as I've gotten more experience that it's not just solving problems that's really important. It is the ability to both identify and solve problems. If you can see that a problem exists and you're willing to run toward the fire to help solve it, that's what makes you indispensable at a company. So my advice to people is develop those critical thinking skills to be able to identify problems that exist and figure out the right ways to solve them. And that is the way that you're going to end up taking on more and more, getting more responsibility, and earning trust for higher level people and making a bigger impact.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there's actually an entire episode in the book on how to identify and then solve problems. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, this has been great advice. Thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate you coming here today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Maya.